The monitoring station floated in the cold darkness of Sector 77 Delta. It was a small place, forgotten by most of the Caliph Empire. Nothing interesting ever happened here. The stars were distant, the space was empty. Officer Yuna had worked at this station for 3 years, and every day was the same as the one before. She sat at her console, watching the green lines move across her screen. The sensors scanned the space around them, looking for ships, asteroids, or anything that might be a threat, but there was never anything. Just empty space. Just silence. Yuna was young for her position. She had sharp eyes and a quick mind. But her superiors never noticed. They thought she was too new, too inexperienced. They gave her the night shift. The boring hours when nothing happened. She did not complain. She just did her job and waited. Tonight felt different somehow. Yuna could not explain why. The air in the station felt heavy. Her skin felt strange, like something was watching her from the darkness outside. She shook her head and looked back at her screen. She was being foolish. There was nothing out there. Then her console flickered. Yuna sat up straight. The green lines on her screen jumped and danced. Something had crossed the edge of their sensor range. She tapped the controls, trying to get a better look. The system tried to lock onto the object, but it was moving too fast. By the time the sensors adjusted, the thing had already traveled 12 light seconds away. That was impossible. Nothing moved that fast. Not even the fastest Imperial warships could travel at such speed. Yuna checked the readings again. The object had no identification signal. It sent out no communication. The sensors could not determine where it came from. It was like a ghost passing through their space. She pressed the button to call her commander. Commander Taewon arrived 5 minutes later, looking tired and annoyed. He was an older man, with gray in his hair and lines on his face. He had served the Empire for many years, and he had seen many young officers panic over nothing. "What is it?" he asked, not hiding his irritation. "Sir, I detected something on the sensors," Yuna said. She showed him the readings. It crossed our sector at impossible speed. No ID, no signal, no origin point. Taewon looked at the screen and frowned. He tapped a few controls, running the data through different filters. After a moment, he shook his head. "Sensor malfunction," he said. "These old systems give false readings all the time. I will have the technicians look at it in the morning. But sir, that is my decision, Officer Yuna." His voice was firm. "The Caliph Empire has ruled this galaxy for 6,000 years. We have catalogued every species, every ship type, every form of propulsion that exists. Nothing escapes our sensors. Nothing moves that fast. It was a glitch. Go back to your work." He walked away before she could say anything more. Yuna sat alone at her console, staring at the readings. She knew what she had seen. It was not a glitch. Something was out there. An hour later, Specialist Jun came to check on the communication systems. She was a calm woman with steady hands and a quiet voice. She worked with signals and frequencies, listening to the whispers of space. She and Yuna had become friends during the long, boring nights at the station. "I heard you found something interesting," Jun said, sitting down next to Yuna. "The commander thinks it was a sensor error." "And what do you think?" Yuna hesitated. "I think something crossed our space. Something we have never seen before." Jun nodded slowly. She pulled up her own readings on a nearby screen. "I found something too. After your detection, I checked for any unusual signals in the area. Most of the space was quiet, as always, but there was this." She pointed to a small pattern on her screen. It was faint, almost invisible among the background noise of the universe. But it was there. A structured pattern. Deliberate, like a whisper that someone had left behind on purpose. "What is it?" Yuna asked. "I do not know. It is not any language in our database. It is not random noise. Someone or something left this signal behind when they passed through." Jion's voice was calm, but her eyes were worried. "Whatever you detected, Yuna, it was real, and it wanted us to know it was here." Before Yuna could respond, her console flickered again. The object had appeared on their sensors once more. This time it was in a completely different location, thousands of kilometers away from where they had first detected it. It stayed for exactly 2 seconds, then vanished. Yuna's hands trembled as she recorded the data. The object had moved to a position that should have taken it hours to reach. It had done it in minutes. That is not possible, Jiun whispered, but it was happening. The object appeared again, then again, each time in a different place. It was moving through imperial space like the laws of physics meant nothing to it, like it was playing a game, showing them just enough to prove it was real. Yuna ran to Commander Taewon's quarters. She did not care if he was angry. He needed to see this. When she showed him the new readings, his face went pale. He was not dismissing her now. He was not calling it a glitch. He was afraid. Send a priority message to High Command, he ordered. Full encryption. Tell them we have detected an unknown object in our sector. No identification. No signal. No traceable origin. Movement capabilities beyond anything in our records. Yuna sent the message. Then they waited. The response came within 1 hour. In all her time at the station, Yuna had never seen High Command respond so quickly. Usually they took days or weeks to answer messages from a small outpost like theirs. But this time, the answer came almost immediately. The message was short. Only 3 lines. Contain, observe, do not engage. Fleet dispatched. Commander Taewon read the message 3 times. His hands were shaking. Yuna had never seen him like this. He was a man who had seen wars and disasters, and remained calm. But now he looked like a man who had seen a ghost. Sir, Yuna said quietly. What does this mean? Taewon did not answer for a long moment. He stared at the screen, at those 3 short lines. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. It means the Empire is scared. And the Empire is never scared. Outside the station windows, the stars continued to shine in the cold darkness. Somewhere out there, something was moving. Something with no name, no signal, no origin. Something the greatest empire in the galaxy could not identify or track. And it was only the beginning. Yuna looked out at the endless void and wondered what was coming. Whatever it was, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The universe had just become a much stranger and more dangerous place. The ghost in the void had announced itself. Now the Empire would have to answer. Number, no ID, no signal, no origin. Number Part 2. Ghost in the Void. The Imperial battle fleet moved through space like a storm of metal and fire. 300 warships, each one large enough to destroy a small moon. Admiral Dongwu stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the stars pass by on the main screen. This was the largest military deployment in 200 years. The Empire was not taking any chances. Dongwu was old, even by Imperial standards. He had lived for centuries, served in wars that most people had forgotten. He was a legend among the fleet, a commander who had never lost a battle. But he had not seen real combat in a very long time. The Empire had grown so powerful that no one dared to challenge it anymore, until now. He reviewed the data on his private screen. In the past week, the anomaly had appeared 47 times across Imperial space. It had been seen near military bases, communication stations, and old colony worlds. It moved without pattern, without logic. The Imperial computers could not predict where it would appear next. Their best minds had tried to understand its propulsion system, and failed. Lieutenant Hana entered the bridge. She was young and full of questions that sometimes annoyed her superiors. But Dongwu liked her. She reminded him of himself when he was young, before the centuries had made him tired and careful. Admiral, I have completed my analysis of the anomaly sightings, she said, handing him a datapad. And what did you find? Hana hesitated. Something strange, sir. The anomaly is not appearing randomly. It is visiting specific locations. Dongwu raised an eyebrow. Explain. I mapped all 47 appearances. They form a pattern. The anomaly has visited old colony worlds, abandoned outposts, dead planets, Places that the Empire stopped caring about long ago. She paused. Places with history. It is like it is looking for something. Or remembering something. Dongwu studied the map she had created. She was right. The locations were not random. They were places that had meaning once. Places that the Empire had used and then forgotten. Some of them were so old that even he did not remember why they had been important. What could it be looking for? He asked, more to himself than to her. I do not know, sir. But whatever it is doing, it seems deliberate. This thing has a purpose. The fleet arrived at Sector 77 Delta 6 hours later. Commander Taiwan and his small crew had been watching the anomaly from their station, sending regular reports. The thing had appeared 3 more times while the fleet was traveling, always staying just long enough to be detected before vanishing again. Admiral Dongwu ordered his ships to form a detection grid. 300 warships spread out across millions of kilometers, their sensors creating a net that nothing could slip through. Every square meter of space was watched. Every frequency was monitored. If the anomaly appeared again, they would see it. The hours passed slowly. The crews sat at their stations, tense and waiting. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, like the moment before a storm. Then it happened. The anomaly appeared inside their formation, not at the edge, not trying to slip past. Right in the middle, surrounded by warships on all sides, it held position for exactly 0.003 seconds, long enough for every sensor to get a clear reading. Then it vanished. Alarms screamed across the fleet. Officers shouted orders. Ships tried to move, to respond, but there was nothing to respond to. The thing was already gone. Lieutenant Hana pulled up the sensor data with trembling hands. For the first time, they had a clear picture of what they were dealing with. Admiral, she said, her voice shaking. It is a ship. Dongwu moved to her station. On the screen was an image of the anomaly. It was small, much smaller than he had expected, sleek and dark, with lines that seemed to flow like water. It looked nothing like any ship in the Imperial fleet. It looked nothing like any ship he had ever seen. Run the hull composition through the database, he ordered. Hana did as he commanded. The computer searched through millions of records, comparing the material to everything the Empire had ever encountered. One by one, the possibilities were eliminated. The ship was made of something that did not match any known substance. Then the computer found something, a partial match, an old file, corrupted and buried deep in the restricted archives. A file that had not been accessed in thousands of years. The label read, Earth, Quarantine, do not contact. Dongwu felt his blood turn cold. He knew that word. Earth. Every high-ranking officer knew it, though they never spoke of it. It was a secret that the Empire had buried long ago, a chapter of history that had been erased from public memory. Get me access to the restricted archives, he said quietly. Sir, that requires authorization from the Council of Seven. I am an admiral of the Imperial fleet. I am authorizing myself. Do it. Hana worked at her console. There were security protocols, barriers, warnings. But Dongwu had codes that most officers did not have. Codes that came with his rank and his centuries of service. One by one, the barriers fell. The file opened. It was 6,000 years old, the oldest record Dongwu had ever seen. It spoke of a species that the Empire had encountered during its early expansion. A species from a small blue planet called Earth, a species called humans. The file described them in clinical terms: adaptable, aggressive, unpredictable. They learned too quickly. They did not accept their place in the order of things. They asked questions that they should not ask. They built weapons when they should have surrendered. The Empire had tried to integrate them. It had failed. The humans refused to be controlled. They fought back with everything they had, even when they had no chance of winning. They were, the file said, too dangerous to exist. The final entry in the file was brief and cold. Species deemed uncontrollable. Planet sterilized. Problem solved. Dongwu read those words 3 times. His hands were shaking. 6,000 years ago, the Empire had killed an entire species. They had burned their planet and hunted the survivors across the stars. They had erased them from history and pretended they had never existed. And now something from that dead world was flying through imperial space. Something that should not exist. Something that was faster and more advanced than anything the Empire possessed. "We killed them," Dongwu whispered. "We killed them all." Hana stood beside him, having read the file over his shoulder. Her face was pale. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. Apparently not. The bridge was silent. The other officers had noticed that something was wrong. They watched their admiral standing frozen at the console, staring at words from a time before any of them were born. Dongwu thought about the ship that had appeared in their formation. It had come and gone as if their entire fleet was nothing. It had shown itself on purpose, letting them see it clearly. It was not afraid of them. It was not hiding. It was announcing itself. 6,000 years. That was a long time to hide. A long time to plan. A long time to build. What had the humans become in all that time? What had they created in the darkness between stars? What were they planning now? The admiral of the Imperial fleet, the hero of 100 battles, looked out at the stars and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The ghost in the void had a name now, and the Empire had much to answer for. Number, no ID. No signal. No origin. Number. Part 3. The ones who remembered. The rogue planet Wanderer drifted through the empty space between star systems. It had no sun to warm it. Its surface was frozen and dead. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than a ball of ice and rock, floating through the endless darkness. But beneath that frozen surface, a city glowed with life. Captain Sunho walked through the underground corridors of New Hope, the largest human settlement on Wanderer. The walls were smooth metal, carved from the rock by generations of workers. The lights were soft and warm. Children ran past him, laughing and playing. Families sat in common areas, sharing meals and stories. This was humanity, hidden from the galaxy, forgotten by the Empire that had tried to destroy them, but very much alive. Sunho was not a tall man, but he carried himself like someone who had seen too much and survived anyway. His eyes were calm and steady. His movements were precise. He was the captain of the Silent Dawn, one of the 12 ghost ships that humanity had built during their long years in hiding. He had just returned from his latest mission. For 3 weeks, he had flown through Imperial space, appearing on sensors and vanishing before anyone could catch him. He had let the Empire see his ship. He had let them know that humans still existed. Now the Empire was afraid, and that was exactly what he wanted. He entered the council chamber, where the leaders of the human remnant were waiting. Elder Jungwoo sat at the head of the table. He was ancient, perhaps the oldest human alive. His body was thin and frail, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He had been a child when the Empire burned Earth. He remembered the fires. He remembered the screams. Engineer Mireille sat nearby. She was younger, with quick hands and restless eyes. She had designed most of the technology that kept their hidden colonies running. The drives that let their ships slip through space like ghosts. The shields that hid their settlements from Imperial sensors. Without her work, humanity would have died out long ago. "Captain Sunho," Elder Jungwoo said, his voice soft but clear. "Your report." Sunho stood before them. "The mission was successful. The Empire detected my ship 47 times across their territory. Their response was exactly as we predicted. They mobilized their largest fleet and sent it to search for us." "And did they find anything?" Mireille asked. "Only what I wanted them to find. I let their sensors get a clear reading of the Silent Dawn. They will have analyzed our hull composition by now. They will have accessed their old files." He paused. "They know who we are." He paused. The room was silent. For 6,000 years, humanity had hidden in the shadows. They had watched the Empire grow fat and lazy on its power. They had learned its secrets, studied its weaknesses, prepared for the day when they would reveal themselves. That day had finally come. Elder Youngwoo closed his eyes. Memories moved behind his ancient face. Memories of a blue planet with green forests and wide oceans. Memories of cities burning and people dying. Memories of children screaming as Imperial warships blocked out the sky. I was 7 years old when they came, he said quietly. My parents put me on one of the last evacuation ships. I watched through a window as Earth burned below me. I watched my home die. He opened his eyes. They were filled with 6,000 years of grief and anger. The Empire thought they killed us all. They erased us from their history. They pretended we never existed. But we remembered. We always remembered. Sunho nodded. He knew this story. Every human child learned it before they could read. The story of Earth. The story of the burning. The story of how a handful of survivors had escaped into the darkness and refused to die. In those first years, Jungwoo continued, we had nothing. Damaged ships. Limited supplies. No safe place to hide. The Empire hunted us across the galaxy. They killed us whenever they found us. We lost thousands in the first decade. He smiled. But there was no warmth in it. But we are human. We adapt. We survive. We learn to hide in places no one would look. Rogue planets, dead star systems, the spaces between galaxies where no ships ever traveled. We found others who had suffered under the Empire, species they had conquered, species they had tried to destroy. We learned from them, and they learned from us. Mirai spoke up. And we built. That is what humans do. We take nothing and make something from it. We had 6,000 years with nothing to do but plan and create. The Empire spent those years growing comfortable. We spent them getting ready. She pulled up a display showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human settlements. There were dozens of them, scattered across the dark spaces between Imperial territory. And there were more dots showing other things: allies, weapons, resources, networks of information reaching into every corner of Imperial space. We have agents in every Imperial sector, Mirai said. We have friends among the species they conquered. We have technology they cannot understand. And we have 12 ships that can move faster than anything they have ever seen. Sunho looked at the map. Decades of his life had been spent making this possible. Flying dangerous missions. Gathering intelligence. Testing their technology against Imperial defenses, all building toward this moment. The question now, he said, is what we do next. The Empire knows we exist. They will come looking for us with everything they have. Elder Jungwoo nodded slowly. This is what we planned for. This is what we wanted. Let them come. Let them search the darkness for ghosts they cannot catch. Let them waste their fleets chasing shadows, while their empire crumbles from within. But Mirai raised her hand. Her face was troubled. May I speak freely? Jungwoo gestured for her to continue. I have worked on our weapons systems for 30 years, she said. I know what we are capable of. We could hurt the Empire badly. We could burn their worlds the way they burned ours. We could make them feel everything they made us feel. She paused. But when we do that, what do we become? The room fell silent. The Empire is evil, Mirai continued. They have destroyed countless species. They have enslaved entire civilizations. They deserve to fall. But do we want to build our future on revenge? Do we want our children to inherit a galaxy of ashes and hatred? Sunho understood her concern. He had thought about it many times during his long missions. The anger inside him was old and deep. He wanted to make the Empire pay for what they had done, but he also knew that anger could become a poison. It could turn them into the very thing they were fighting against. Elder Jungwoo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but certain. Mirai is right to ask these questions. They are important questions. But I will tell you what I believe. He looked around the room at each of them. We are not fighting for revenge. We are fighting for justice. There is a difference. He stood, though it seemed to cost him great effort. The Empire must answer for its crimes. That is justice. But we will not become monsters to achieve it. We will give them a choice. We will give them a chance to change. And if they refuse, his eyes hardened. Then we will do what must be done. A message alert sounded. One of their agents embedded in Imperial space had sent an urgent communication. Sunho read it and felt his heart beat faster. The Empire has accessed the Earth files. They know humans survived. They are mobilizing their entire military. Elder Jungwoo smiled. It was a cold smile. The smile of someone who had waited 6,000 years for this moment. Good. Let them come looking. Let them find what is waiting in the darkness. Captain Sunho looked at the message one more time. The game had begun. Everything they had built, everything they had planned, would be tested now. He thought of Earth, the home he had never seen. He thought of all the humans who had died so that he could live. He thought of the children playing in the corridors outside. This was for them, all of them. We remember, he said quietly. And now the galaxy will remember too. Number, no ID, no signal, no origin. Number Part 4. The Hunt Reversed. The imperial capital world of Calith Prime was the heart of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Massive towers reached toward the sky. Ships moved through the air like metal insects. Billions of beings lived and worked in this place, serving the power that had ruled for 6,000 years. But now that power was shaking. High Counselor Sira stood in her private chamber, watching the reports flood in from across the empire. Every screen showed chaos. Ghost ships appearing and vanishing in dozens of sectors. Communications going dead without warning. Defense systems shutting down for seconds at a time, then reactivating as if nothing had happened. The humans were not attacking. They were demonstrating. They were showing the Empire exactly what they could do, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. Sarah was the most powerful being in the Empire. She had held her position for 400 years. She had crushed rebellions, conquered star systems, and destroyed anyone who challenged her authority. She was not afraid of anything, but as she watched the reports, something cold moved through her chest. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Fear. Summon the Council of Seven, she ordered. Full emergency session. The council met within the hour. 7 beings who ruled the galaxy gathered around a table made of rare crystal. They watched the same reports Sarah had seen. Their faces showed confusion, anger, and underneath it all, the same fear she felt. How is this possible? One of them demanded. We destroyed the humans 6,000 years ago. We burned their planet. We hunted them to extinction. Apparently, Sarah said coldly, we failed. One species cannot challenge the Empire. We have millions of ships. We have billions of soldiers. What can a handful of survivors do against us? As if in answer, another alert appeared on the screens. A ghost ship had just appeared in the heart of a major military installation. It had stayed for 5 seconds, long enough to scramble every computer system in the base. Then, it vanished. The council fell silent. Sira made her decision. We mobilize everything. Every fleet. Every weapon. Every resource. We find these humans, and we finish what our ancestors started. No more hiding in the shadows. No more second chances. The orders went out across the Empire. The greatest military mobilization in history began, but the humans had already placed their pieces on the board. Deep in the Imperial archives, in a small office where no one important ever went, a woman named Jisoo continued her work. She had been a minor functionary here for 40 years. She filed documents. She organized records. She was invisible, forgotten, exactly as she wanted to be. Jisoo was human. She had lived among the Empire's people for 4 decades, hiding in plain sight. Her mission was not to spy, it was not to sabotage, it was simply to wait, to be ready for the moment when she would be needed. That moment had come. She accessed the archive systems using codes she had collected over 40 years. She did not steal secrets or plant explosives. She did something far more dangerous. She released information. 6,000 years of hidden history poured into the imperial networks. Documents that had been classified, buried, erased. The truth about Earth. The truth about the humans. The truth about what the Empire had done to them. But that was only the beginning. Jisoo released more files. Records of other species the Empire had pacified. Planets that had been sterilized. Civilizations that had been erased. Crimes that the Council had committed and covered up for thousands of years. The truth spread like fire across the networks. It reached military bases, civilian stations, conquered worlds. Beings who had lived their whole lives under imperial rule suddenly learned what their rulers had really done. The Empire's subject species, dozens of civilizations held under control for centuries, began to ask questions, began to doubt, began to wonder if they should continue serving masters who had committed such horrors. Sarah discovered the leak hours later. By then, it was too late. The information was everywhere. She could not contain it. Find whoever did this, she commanded. Find them and destroy them. But Jisoo was already gone. A ghost ship had appeared for 2 seconds above the archive building. When Imperial security arrived at her office, they found only empty air. 1 week later, the ghost ships stopped hiding. Admiral Dongwoo was commanding the defense fleet around Kalith Prime when his sensors screamed an alarm. 12 contacts had appeared simultaneously. 12 ships, arranged in a perfect circle around the Imperial capital. They were not attacking. They were just there. Every weapon in the defense fleet locked onto the targets. Every ship prepared to fire. Dongwoo's hand hovered over the command that would unleash destruction. But something stopped him. The ghost ships were broadcasting a message. It played on every frequency, in every language, reaching every corner of the Empire. We remember. We survived. We are coming. Not for revenge, for justice. Choose your side. The message repeated once. Then the ships vanished, slipping back into the darkness as if they had never been there. Dongwoo stared at the empty space where they had been. His officers waited for orders. His finger still hovered over the firing command, though there was nothing left to fire at. He thought about the archives he had read, the history of Earth, the genocide his ancestors had committed. He had served the Empire his entire life, believing it was good, believing it brought order to the galaxy. But now he knew the truth. The Empire was built on ashes and lies. A private communication alert appeared on his console. A direct message, sent through channels that should not exist. He opened it. The message was from Captain Sunho. Admiral Dongwoo, you seem like a reasonable being. Your empire killed billions of my people. They burned our world. They hunted our children. We have spent 6,000 years preparing for this moment. Dongwoo read each word carefully. We could kill billions of your people. We have the ability. We have the reason. But we would rather not. We are not monsters, Admiral. We are survivors. The message continued. We are giving you a choice. The same choice your ancestors never gave us. You can continue to serve an empire built on genocide. You can fight for masters who would burn worlds to maintain their power. Or you can choose something else. The empire will fall. That is certain. The only question is how many will die when it does. Help us make it fewer. Help us build something better from the ashes. Think about it, Admiral. You have seen what we can do. Now imagine what we could build together. The message ended with a simple signature. Captain Sunho, human survivor, one of many. Dongwoo sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his officers continued their duties, unaware of the message their commander had received. The defense fleet held its position, ready to fight an enemy that could appear and disappear at will. He thought about his centuries of service, the battles he had fought, the orders he had followed. He had always believed he was serving something greater than himself. But what if that something was rotten at its core? He thought about Lieutenant Hana, who had asked the questions he was afraid to ask. He thought about the beings across the Empire who were now learning the truth about their rulers. He thought about the future. Finally, he made his decision. He did not know if it was the right one. He did not know if it would matter, but he knew he could not continue pretending that the Empire was just. He did not respond to Sunho's message. Not yet. But he did not delete it either. Instead, he looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness where humanity had hidden for 6,000 years. Somewhere out there, the ghost ships were watching. Waiting, the hunt had reversed. The Empire was no longer the hunter. It was the prey. And Admiral Dongwu, for the first time in his long life, wondered which side he truly belonged to. Number no ID. No signal. No origin. Number Part 5. What Humanity Became. 3 months had passed since the ghost ships revealed themselves to the galaxy. In that time, everything had changed. 7 Imperial subject species had declared independence. Their fleets, once loyal to the Empire, now fought against it. Worlds that had been quiet for centuries erupted in rebellion. The truth about the Empire's crimes had spread to every corner of the galaxy, and billions of beings had decided they would no longer serve murderers. The Empire was not defeated. It was still powerful, still dangerous, but it was fighting on a dozen fronts at once, and for the first time in 6,000 years, it was losing. And then humanity offered something no one expected: peace talks. The neutral space station Last Accord floated in unclaimed territory. It was an ancient place, built long ago for species to meet and negotiate. The Empire had banned such gatherings centuries ago, but now the station was active again. Ambassador Yunji arrived on a shuttle that bore no markings. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been chosen to speak for humanity not because she was a warrior, but because she understood something that warriors sometimes forgot: that the goal was not to destroy, but to build. 17 species had sent representatives to watch. Some were rebels who had broken free of the Empire. Others were still loyal to the old order, uncertain of what to do. All of them wanted to see what the humans would say. High Counselor Sira came herself. She had aged in the past 3 months. The stress of fighting a war on every front had taken its toll. But her eyes were still cold, her voice still commanding. She was determined to end this crisis by any means necessary. The two women faced each other across a table in the station's main chamber. Screens around the room showed the representatives watching from their ships. Billions more were watching through broadcasts that reached every corner of the galaxy. "You requested this meeting," Sarah said. "Speak." Unji folded her hands on the table. "High Counselor, for 6,000 years, your empire has ruled this galaxy through fear and violence. You have enslaved species, destroyed civilizations, and erased history. Your ancestors tried to exterminate my people. They failed." Sarah's expression did not change. "The past is the past. What matters now is the present. You have 12 ships and a handful of survivors. The Empire still commands the greatest military force in existence. This rebellion will be crushed. It is only a matter of time." "Is it?" Unji's voice remained calm. "Your fleets are scattered, fighting fires across your territory. Your subject species are breaking free one by one. The truth about your crimes has reached every world. Your empire is crumbling, High Counselor. And we have not even begun to fight." She leaned forward slightly. "You have seen 12 of our ships. You have seen what they can do. You think that is all we have?" Sira's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" Yunji activated a display on the table. A map of the galaxy appeared, filled with markers that Sira had never seen before. 67 hidden colonies, Yunji said. Populations in the hundreds of millions. Industrial capacity that we have been building for 6,000 years. Technology that makes your best scientists weep with confusion. She pointed to other markers. Alliances with species you thought you destroyed. Networks reaching into every sector of your space. Weapons you cannot imagine. The representatives watching gasped. Even Sira could not hide her shock. "We did not just survive," Unji said. "We thrived. In the darkness between your stars, While you grew comfortable and lazy, we became something new. Something you cannot defeat. Sira recovered her composure. Then why negotiate? If you are so powerful, why not simply destroy us? Unji was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer, sadder. Because we know what Empire does. We nearly died because of it. We have seen the cost of conquest, the price of revenge. We do not want to become what you are. She looked directly at Sira. 6,000 years ago, your ancestors had a choice. They could have welcomed us into the galactic community. They could have learned from us, as we could have learned from them. Instead, they chose fear. They chose destruction. They burned our world and murdered billions. We are giving you a choice they never gave us. The chamber was completely silent. Every being watching held their breath. We do not want your empire, Unji said. We do not want your throne. We want something different. A new order. A galaxy where no species can exterminate another. Where diversity is protected. Where the strong do not simply crush the weak. She pushed a document across the table. These are our terms. The Empire becomes a member of a new galactic council. With equal voice but no special authority. All subject species are granted independence. War crimes are acknowledged, and reparations are made. A new system of justice is established to prevent future atrocities. Sarah stared at the document. Her face was unreadable. For a long moment, she did not speak. And if I refuse? Yunji's expression did not change. Then the Empire falls anyway. We have shown you what we can do. Our ships can appear anywhere, anytime. Our allies will continue to rebel. The truth will continue to spread. Your military is already stretched too thin. In a year, perhaps two, there will be nothing left to rule. She paused. You can accept a new order and preserve what remains of your civilization. Or you can fight until you have nothing. The choice is yours. Sarah looked at the document, then at the map showing humanity's hidden strength, then at the faces of the watching representatives. She had ruled for 400 years. She had never been forced to surrender anything. But she was not a fool. She could see the numbers. She could read the situation. The Empire was dying. The only question was whether it died in fire or found a new way to live. Her hand trembled as she reached for the document. I will sign, she said quietly. But know this. I do not forgive. I do not forget. Unji nodded. Neither do we. But forgiveness is not the same as peace. We can work toward one while waiting for the other. The treaty was signed. The representatives watched as history changed before their eyes. The greatest empire the galaxy had ever known accepted a new order. Not through conquest, but through choice. 3 days later, Captain Sunho stood on the bridge of the Silent Dawn. For the first time in his life, his ship flew openly through space. No hiding. No running. The ghost had stepped into the light. Beside him stood Yuna. The Imperial officer who had first detected his ship had defected after learning the truth. She served as his new sensor officer. Her sharp eyes now watching for different things. What happens now? She asked. Sunho looked out at the stars. The same stars that had watched his ancestors burn. The same stars that had witnessed 6,000 years of hiding and waiting. Now we build something worth surviving for, he said. Below them, the rogue planet Wanderer continued its endless journey through the darkness. But its people were no longer hiding. Human ships flew alongside vessels from a dozen other species. Former enemies were becoming allies. A new galaxy was being born. Elder Yungwu watched from his chamber, his ancient eyes filled with tears. He had waited his entire life for this moment. He had carried the memory of Earth through centuries of darkness. And now, at the end of his days, he saw humanity step into the light. We remembered, he whispered to himself. And now the galaxy will never forget. Engineer Mireille was already working on new projects. Not weapons this time, but tools for building. Ships for exploration. Systems for communication. The technology that had kept humanity hidden would now help connect the galaxy. Ambassador Yunji returned to New Hope as a hero, but she did not celebrate. She knew that peace was fragile, that the work was just beginning. There would be challenges, conflicts, setbacks. The old hatreds would not disappear overnight, but humanity had survived the impossible. They had turned genocide into renewal. They had transformed revenge into justice. If they could do that, they could do anything. Sunho watched as the first convoy of human civilian ships emerged from hiding. Families who had lived in darkness for generations were seeing open space for the first time. Children pressed their faces against windows, staring at stars they had only heard about in stories. "We made it," Yuna said softly. Sunho nodded. He thought about all the humans who had died so this moment could happen. The ones who had fled Earth as it burned. The ones who had been hunted through the galaxy. The ones who had worked and planned and sacrificed for 6,000 years. They had done this together. All of them. "No," he said. "We did not just make it. We became something new. Something better." He looked at Yuna, at his crew, at the ships flying alongside them. Human and alien together. Building a future that neither could have achieved alone. "That is what humanity does," he said. "We fall down. We get up. We keep going. And we never stop reaching for the stars." The silent dawn flew on through the galaxy, no longer a ghost, but a beacon. Behind it came others. Thousands of others. Carrying the hope of a species that had refused to die. No ID, no signal, no origin. But now they had something better. A future. And they would make it one worth remembering.